Sid at Berkeley in his room listening to that like first full like Justin Vernon and Bon Iver song. What would he think of this now?
I've had the blessing of having these dreams come true at different points in my life, and I can always identify where like, oh, this is really special. You know, the first EP I put out at the end of college, I'd sampled Perth in a song called Entropy. There's many moments of like points in my life where I'd be like, yo.
Hey friends, it's your girl Emily Curl, and right now we're at our iHeartRadio headquarters here in New York City, and we're hanging out with artist Sid. Sriram is here. Can we give it up for Sid in New York City? Here. The whole crew here. Welcome,
awesome.
Sid.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
You were saying last time you were at iHeart was a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, I want to say like around 2017. I feel like I did an in-studio performance for when I was putting out some music back then.
Oh my God, well lots has happened since then.
Yes.
But it's so cool to have you here. This is our first time meeting, so I'm curious to hear more of your journey. So take me back to the beginning. Tell me your musical journey. When did you first discover your love for music?
Sure, it was really early on. So I was born in Chennai, India. My family and I, we moved to the States in '91 when I was a year old, and we moved to the San Francisco Bay Area, a suburb called Fremont. And my musical journey started when I was 3 years old. My mom's a musician, her father was a musician, so it was like on a lineage kind of tip, it just kind of was passed down to me. And my parents recognized just like this deep, I would say like affinity, but even deeper than that, like for music and just melody specifically. I was always kind of like humming something. Yeah, so my mom started a music school in '92 for South Indian classical music, Carnatic music. So it was always around, it seeped into my consciousness. And then when I was 3, they were doing like a performance at UC Berkeley. And I really wanted to be on stage, and my parents put me on thinking I'd get scared and run off or something like that, but I just fell deeply in love with it.
At 3 years old, you're on stage?
Yeah.
And what were you doing on stage? Were you singing?
Oh, yeah. No, I was performing,
You fully had a mic at 3 years old.
Yeah. And there's like a video of it. And I, identify with this, there's like just an intensity that I could see in myself, like at that age of like once it, like I tapped into it. I come from a culture that really believes in like karma and like the hangover from past lives and such. So I feel like a lot of this stuff I've carried on from previous lives perhaps. But I started really young. I knew I loved it, and it was like elemental, like water and air, and just have followed the compass ever since, really.
When you started creating your own music, who was the first person in your life that was like, this is really good, like, I think you're going somewhere?
So I started writing my own, like really digging into creating my original songs and finding my sound early college, I would say, which is 2008, and I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston.
Yeah, I read that, yeah.
And, I would noodle around at home when I was a little bit younger in high school and stuff, but my parents would just kind of like let it pass. And in their defense, I wasn't very good at writing songs at first. But there was a moment when I was in college when I wrote something that really felt like it brought like my different cultures together, where there was this undercurrent of Indian classical kind of influences, but it was also like, it felt like an R&B tune. And I grew up on listening like to a lot of soul music, like Sam Cooke and all that.
I was going to ask you what those earliest influences were.
Yeah, and I started listening to that music when I was like 7 or 8. So there was a song in my first or second semester at Berklee I wrote called California Air, and it was just about being homesick. We, like after going out to parties, you all end up in someone's dorm room, and being at music school, everyone had a keyboard. So I was just started playing it, and there's like 2 or 3 friends were like, looked at me a certain way. I was like, okay, I think like I can do this for real. It was like a clicking point for sure.
Yeah, like they knew that this was happening.
Yeah. And that was the first moment where I was like, okay, I have something to say that's unique, and I have a unique way of saying it that feels very heartfelt. So, yeah.
And then you went on, you've done so many things. For you, what do you feel like was that turning point where like things started happening for you in your music career?
It's been like phased out, I feel like. Around 2011, I took a year off of college, and I went back to Berklee for the summer of 2011. And when I went back, and this was after a whole bunch of like profound life moments happened in terms of like some family members passing away, and just, those moments in life that really shake you up to grow up a little bit and deep dive within yourself. So that had happened. I went back to college, and I made this cover of Frank Ocean's We All Try. And he had just put that mixtape out or whatever a few months prior to that. And I was in love with the song. And we made that cover almost by accident in a classroom at Berklee, but there was something really deep in it. And once it came out, it just kind of did this thing, and that was my first moment of like getting recognition on a grander scale. The video really went viral, and it was people from all parts of the world, and it was a huge moment for me because then you're able to see what the internet can really do, and how it can kind of be a tool. So there was that moment, and then I started singing for Indian films in 2012, and I got to work with someone that I've looked up to as a hero since I was like as far back as I can remember. His name is A.R. Rahman. He did the soundtrack for like Slumdog Millionaire.
Wow.
And so when he won the Oscar for that in 2010, for someone like myself who looks like me, he's from the same city I'm from in India. It was just a deeply affirming moment that, because we don't really see South Asian, Indian people in popular culture. That time you didn't see it much at all. So seeing that for me was huge. Then I got to work with them 2 years after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so inspiring.
And so that was another, I think, like major point. And then the third one is in the last 2 years when we made this album. That also happened super serendipitously and kind of marks this phase of my career and my artistry that I'm in right now.
Let's talk about this album, because just reading about it, it sounds like this is something that you've never done before, maybe a sound that you haven't done before. Tell us a little bit about the project and the influences behind it.
Sure. I mean, it was like tail end of pandemic-ish, like May 2021. I'd connected very randomly with this producer from Minneapolis. His name is Ryan Olson. It just happened magically, really. And he kept saying, come out to Minneapolis, let's make some music. I'm used to making music in either LA, New York, or certain cities in India. And I'm a creature of comfort. So I was like, maybe I'll come in. And my dad, who manages me, was like, go see what's going on in the Midwest and just see what's happening. So
And what time of the year was this? I just went to Minneapolis for the first time, and it's
Was
no
it the
joke.
winter?
It was cold.
Oh, it's crazy.
I'm not ready for that.
No, it's brick. No, I went in the summertime.
Okay, so you like had a nice.
I pulled up when it was like a nice, like, it wasn't too hot.
Okay.
It was real pleasant.
Okay, good.
For sure. But yeah, I went there with zero expectations, kind of like, my career in India has been prolific and I'm really at this position over there and I've been doing it for a minute. So I was at this point in my life where I was like, do I just move there full time or do I still want to pursue English language, original music, my own stuff? I'd made the trip over there with no expectation, and it was Ryan, Justin Vernon, like a group of like 6 to 8 of us, just like in that studio space in Ryan's studio with no ego, just making music from a space of pure joy.
That's
It was
awesome.
after the pandemic where no one had the chance to really like connect in a studio and play music together. So there was just a lot of joy, and we caught this creative wave, which, it doesn't always happen. So when it happens, and sometimes it happens and you don't seize it.
So at the time you knew it was special. You were like, we're capturing a feeling.
The first 3 days we were just posted up in that studio, and I left there with 30 ideas that we just had jammed on, and they all felt essential. Like there was something in each of the ideas, like there's something in here. And over the course of the next 8, I'd been working on some other music before that. In my mind, this was like a cute little side project that we were doing. And then 2 months in, I would spend every day carving out the songs, and I'd go back to Minneapolis, we'd work on it some more, take it back to the Bay where I was staying at, record some more, so it was a process for sure. But about like a month and a half, 2 months in, I was like, oh, this is the album, and it just really clicked. And it's just been magical, it affirmed a belief in like magic, serendipity, and all those things. For
Wow.
Sure.
Yeah, it's so cool. I want to talk about, you mentioned Bon Iver's Justin Vernon, that you guys got to work together. And you'd been a big fan before, right?
Oh yeah. So when I was in college, that's when he really kind of like, especially that was like this internet era where there was like a lot of discovery musically. It wasn't hyper saturated just yet. And I was probably like freshman or sophomore year of college when his song Woods, I think it was, with like a very specific auto-tuned vocal approach. I'm up in the woods. We were all music nerds in college, being like,
So of course you're like, what is he up to?
yeah,
Like,
but what is
something-
this thing? Because we had only heard auto-tune in very different contexts,
Right.
never in that way. That was the first thing that caught my ear. And then after that, I fell in love with everything about what he was doing. I mentioned I lost family members. So that same 2011 summer, he put out the Bon Iver record that got all the Grammys with like Holocene and Perth.
Yeah.
And that was my album to grieve to, really. You know what I mean? Like, and it was an everyday thing where I would listen to it kind of on repeat, like a lot. And fast forward 10 years, and I've been a major fan, admirer of what he does, and he really exists in this, space that feels like it's in the upper echelon of artistry. Then I met him, and they say don't like meet the people that and I've gotten to do it once before, and that was a beautiful process. And with him, it just made me love the music even more, but he's just a great human being.
Did you get to tell him what that album meant to you?
Big time, yeah. I mean, we had a conversation after the third day. I don't like to fan out on people because it happens to me sometimes, and it's an interesting dynamic, but we got to have a very human conversation, and it was beautiful. Yeah, it was great. And to have him, he plays acoustic guitar on a lot of the songs on the album. His vocals are in one piece. It just feels like, I said, I'm using the word magic a lot, but it truly felt magical.
Well, that's interesting. Like when it happens to you, like when you feel like someone's like fan, like does it change the dynamic, especially if you're creating music? Does it happen in the studio often? So we haven't got to hear the full album yet, but we did get 2 singles. So let's talk about those. Sure. Dear Sana and Do the Dance. Yeah. Let's start with Do the Dance because it's such a beautiful song. The production's amazing. Why did you want to release that one first?
It felt like a warm hug.
It does. That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, and I think I wanted to embrace people into this universe that we built with a warm hug. Literally, it just felt like the best way to kind of be like, come on in, we have something we've been doing, and I really want to share it with you. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Dear Sahana.
Yeah.
We got to see you perform it on the Tiny Desk concert, and it had a really viral moment on TikTok. Tell me about that and seeing your fans interact with that.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, that's been one of my favorite songs since we started making the music. I remember the second day we were jamming, and so basically Ryan would have some drums programmed. He set parameters of what the instruments would be, and then we just open jam. And that was it was like a daytime jam. There's a guitar solo that Justin has in it 2.5 minutes in, and that was from the first day that we jammed. It was just straight taken from that. And I was just riffing on the stuff, and there was a warmth in the song immediately. And then as we progressed, it just felt very, vulnerable. It was coming from a deep place. Performing at Tiny Desk was crazy.
I was going to say, what was that experience like?
Tiny Desk has this thing, you walk in there and the desk is there, and you've seen it so many times before, and then you pull up and you're there. It was so much fun. We were stressing before going there because you have to play pretty quiet. There's no amplification. It's just direct audio from me singing. So, and we had 2 drummers and we had a whole big group of us. But we got there and it was just, you practice enough, you trust the people around you, and you can surrender to the moment. It was definitely that. And that song felt especially just joyful. Yeah.
And now you're getting ready to hit the stage with Bon Iver.
Yeah.
You're going on tour in August, which is so exciting. Tell me when you found out about that moment.
So we had a show in Toronto in February. It was a great show, super fun. We got off stage and then Justin had texted. Being hey, do you think you'd want to join? Of course. It was cool. I mean, I was hyped. I was super hyped.
Sid at Berkeley in his room listening to that first full Justin Vernon Bon Iver song. What would he think of this now?
Oh, man. I've had the blessing of having these dreams come true at different points in my life, and I can always identify where this is really special. I'd be geeked. It was, and especially then, I was just such a curious, I'm still quite curious, but that point in my life, there was so many thoughts, insecurities, so on and so forth. Just really starting to come into my own as what I wanted to be as an artist and a human being. So to know that this is happening now, the first EP I put out at the end of college, I'd sampled Perth in a song called Entropy. There's many moments of points in my life where I'd be yo.
Oh my God, y'all have to do some collabs on stage. Can that happen? Anything? Can you tell us anything?
God willing, we will see, for sure.
Like you said, I'm sure as an artist, especially you just never stop dreaming. But what are you dreaming about?
I feel this album is a statement piece of really asserting or reaffirming to myself who I am. The album is titled Siddharth, which is the name my parents gave me. And it feels almost a reclaiming of that name as I'm, spending more time in the US now and digging back into my roots here. So I think what I'm looking forward to, first putting out this album and really sharing it with the world, something that means so much to me and the people I made it with, getting to share that's going to be beautiful. You know what Tiny Desk showed me, and just the response that got, especially on TikTok, is so many new people from different pockets of the world have kind of now joined this family. And I've always felt that my desire and my purpose is to do this on a global scale and really kind of drive home at the fact that there's a universality of emotions and experience, and music is a beautiful way to express that. So just take that core spirit forward, in everything that I do it with people that I really love. Have as many real human connections as possible. I love performing on stage because you can look out and you can see people's eyes and you can see that it's molecularly changing the way they feel, they operate, And I think the internet is a beautiful tool. Yeah. And it's really, for sure, helped me in many ways. But yeah, taking the spirit and taking it to as many people around the world as possible and continuing.
I still can't get over from 3 years old being on stage to now. It's you're born to do this. That's so cool to see. Here at iHeart, I think it's also really awesome. What we love to do is connect artists to fans. It's really important to us. So you have a lot of fans watching this right now, maybe some new fans.
Sure.
If you could send a message to them right now,
Sure.
Sid to fans, what would you say?
Thank you, first and foremost. I'm deeply, deeply grateful. If you've been on this journey for a long time, lots of love. If you just came into the family, super love. It's going to be an amazing journey going forward, and I'm just grateful. Get ready for a lot more, for sure.
We're so excited. Can we give it up one more time for Sid Sriram in our office in New York? Sid, thank you for being here. It was so great chatting. And of course, thank you all for watching. Make sure you stream all of Sid's music on iHeartRadio, and we'll see you next time. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Did you like that video? You can check out more over here. And don't forget to subscribe to iHeart right here. And if you're already a longtime fan, make sure you ring the bell down below so you don't miss a single video. Bye guys.